one fight that was actually gonna happen if Gerald McClellan managed to get past Nigel Benn and win his WBC super middleweight title. Obviously, in that in that tragic fight that happened, the aspiration for Gerald McClellan was to actually fight Roy Jones afterwards. So he was going to fight Roy Jones Jr. if he would have beaten Nigel Benn. Now, at the time, a lot of people thought that Gerald McClellan was going to destroy Nigel Benn and easily take his WBC title and then have a super fight with Roy Jones, who at the time was the best fighter in the world. He was pound for pound seen as the best. Now, at the time, Gerald McClellan was one of the top pound for pound fighters in the world. If you look at the Ring Magazine rankings, I think he was number 8. And I think Roy Jones at the time was number 1 at the time. So both of them was in a collision course to actually have a fight with each other. Obviously, we saw what happened with Nigel Benn. He obviously it's tragic the way things transpired between them two. But yeah, so it was actually predicted that Roy Jones and Gerald McClellan were going to have a fight. And a lot of people were wondering who would have actually won that particular fight. Now, it's pretty well known and well documented that Gerald McClellan actually beat Roy Jones during the Olympic trials. He managed to beat him in the amateurs, and that was a massive scalp that he had on his record. If you think about it, like beating Roy Jones, who in reality did win the gold medal in the Olympics, even though he got robbed in the Olympics, that's a huge accomplishment for a fighter of the stature of Gerald McClellan. If you take into account that Gerald McClellan is more of a puncher than a boxer, in the sense that his skills are he's more of a puncher than he is a boxer. He can box, but his main bread and butter was to be a puncher. But that showed the level of skill that Gerald McClellan actually possessed. The fact that he managed to outbox and outpoint a consummate professional like Roy Jones in the amateur shows what could have happened if they actually fought. Now, if they did actually fight each other, I think obviously it's all hypothetical. We don't know what would have happened because the fight never happened because of the tragic circumstances of Nigel Benn putting Gerald McClellan in the position that he's in today. But if they did fight each other, let's just say hypothetically, so I would say if you wanted to say prime Gerald McClellan wasn't the Gerald McClellan that fought Nigel Benn. I think that was prime Gerald McClellan was probably the McClellan that fought Julian Jackson the first time or the second time. Obviously, he did go up to super middleweight and win a title there as well. But prime Gerald McClellan was the Gerald McClellan that had Emmanuel Stewart in his corner. And obviously Roy Jones, prime Roy Jones, I think, was the Roy Jones that beat James Toney and completely embarrassed him. So if them two fighters were to fight each other, who do I think would have won? I actually am edging towards Roy Jones. Now, I think obviously Gerald McClellan did beat him in amateurs, but if you take into perspective, amateur fights are only 3 rounds. So if you're in an amateur fight, you got less rounds to win a fight than if you're in a professional fight. I think, in my opinion, that Roy Jones had the style to actually beat Gerald McClellan. Now, don't get it twisted, it will be a very close fight, and Gerald McClellan will definitely have his moments, and on top of that, there may be times that he buzzes him because obviously he's such a tremendous puncher. But we're talking about prime Roy Jones here. Prime Roy Jones was a specimen, like a physical specimen. This was a dude that just laying a glove on him in his prime was seen as a massive accomplishment. There was times where like he would go years without losing a round. The level of dominance that prime Roy Jones had was ridiculous. He made great fighters like the likes of Bernard Hopkins and Mike McCullum and James Toney look like complete amateurs in there with him. He just seemed to be like on another level. Now, them fighters, the likes of James Toney, Bernard Hopkins, Mike McCullum, they had more better boxing ability in terms of technical skill than a Gerald McClellan. Gerald McClellan in the professional ranks, he did have skill, but he relied on his power more than his skill. So, in my opinion, I just think Roy Jones was just on a whole nother level. I think he would have beaten him, probably by a 12-round decision. Because Gerald McClellan had a great chin. I don't think Roy Jones, even though he hits very hard, I don't think he would have had the power to actually stop him, because of the fact that Gerald McClellan had such a good chin. So yeah, that's my opinion on it. Don't get it twisted. Gerald McClellan would definitely have his rounds, and he probably would give prime Roy Jones a very, very, very good fight. Would definitely be competitive in there, because he did beat him in amateurs. But I just think obviously the amateur win was several years before he turned professional, I believe. It wasn't too long ago. It may have been a year or two, maybe, of that sort. And obviously, Roy Jones, when he was in professional rank, he was a completely different fighter. Like, he still had the same style, but he had more maturity. He was just a better fighter than when he was in his amateur days. So yeah, that's my opinion. I think prime Roy Jones just completely he doesn't embarrass him, but he wins very comfortably against Gerald McClellan. Not very comfortably, actually. I'd say there'll be a few scares in there. I think Gerald McClellan will land a couple of good hard shots, and he may even buzz him and win 1 or 2 rounds. But I think I'm edging towards Roy Jones. I think Roy Jones just beats him in that particular fight. But you tell me your thoughts below. Who do you think would win between the likes of Gerald McClellan versus Roy Jones? Let's just say both of them were in their prime. Who do you think would win that particular fight? Also take into account that Gerald McClellan actually beat Roy Jones in the amateurs as well, which is a huge accomplishment. If you take into account that Roy Jones went on to become an Olympic. He didn't become an Olympic gold medalist, but he should have won that Olympic gold medal. I mean, he won the Van Barker Award in the Olympics, which is usually awarded to the best boxer of the Olympics, and that was basically Roy Jones. So yeah, that's my thoughts below. Tell me your thoughts below, and tell me who you think would have won that fight if they would have fought each other. I think Roy Jones would have just been a bit too much for Gerald McClellan at that time. Even though Gerald McClellan had tremendous power, I just think Roy Jones' combination of speed, reflexes, power, athleticism would just and technical boxing ability would have been a bit too much for him. But yeah, tell me your thoughts below. Like and subscribe. I got a lot more content coming your way. Peace out.